just to see. I didn't really think about YouTube at the time. I didn't used to use YouTube much. I'm presuming you are familiar with YouTube and use it. I didn't really think much about it. I didn't use it very much, but so I knew it was a place I could put stuff. So I started uploading these videos that I made to YouTube, so I couldn't lose them. The code on the keyboard thing. And now I do like a video probably every couple of days. There's just over 600 on there now. I'll just play one of these bits of sound works because you may have them like that.
There's no issue papers that go wrong.
Shall I try pressing something? I'm going to rewind that if you don't mind. It's only about 6.
Think about creativity again yesterday. I'm not thinking about what we used to. I'm doing a session at the university I used to work at for a group of M&A students.
That's you.
And it's about the whole weekend about creativity, so I've been kind of invited to think in those terms again. And one of the things I'm thinking about, I don't think I'll be talking about this tomorrow, but one of the things I'm thinking about is to do with memory, I suppose, and the relationships as well. Two things actually. One is to do with the relationship between creativity and memory, and the other is to do with this kind of perceived difference that we want to assume as it is between people who are creative and people who aren't. Now, I mean, a lot of people who said they're not creative, the choice of abstraction is slightly surprising. As soon as they start telling their dreams, they start, anything really, narrating any part of their life, you realise how creative they are. But they don't see themselves as that. And nothing about the way they live their lives suggests that they invest in the creativity that they have. So there's something interesting for me there about that potential relationship between one to do with memory. I'm not sure this is just an analogy, and it's something to do with perceiving oneself as being creative or acting in a way which would be characterised as creative. The reason why I think it's got to do with memory is what I sometimes have said to my students in the past. I'm not sure if I entirely stand by this now. But occasionally I've said to my students in the past is that the only difference between the person who's creative and the person who isn't creative is the creative people write it down. And if they don't write it down, they draw a picture. Or if they don't draw a picture, they make a model. Or if they don't make a model, they make some kind of trace of what they've been thinking about. Or they build something, or they erase something, or they make some kind of change in the environment in which they're moving through that records what they've been thinking about. And it's a trace, a piece of writing or an object or just some kind of physical representation that they can go back to and change again. Because I think if you don't do that, it doesn't matter how many ideas you have, if you don't write them down or make some kind of change in your environment reflecting those ideas, they just slip away like memories or like dreams. They just slip away. And I think, certainly I've had that experience a lot of the time. When I have a great idea, it's not usually a great idea, but I have some kind of an idea which might be worth pursuing. And I find if I don't write it down and make a video of it or do something, there's no chance of me remembering it an hour later. Which is how I started making these videos in the first place, actually. Just to try to remember stuff. But I suppose what it's making me think of is that piece of research, which I'm not sure if I've referred to before, by McVittie to do with, I want to call this,
It's specific at that point, but just as a general, this is how that practice started to evolve. Thinking about how do you record this stuff, and it became, like I said, this using time. In relation to what we talked about up to this point, which is about knowledge, I just want to see if I can just make that relationship to what I said earlier about creativity. Because there are a set of processes which I talked about before, these are kind of empirical, rational, scientific processes which seem to lead to particular knowledge outcomes, facts, if you like, artifacts. And they're characterized by this eureka moment at the end where the problem comes together. Yeah? But what I want to suggest here is that arts practice, which tends to be characterized by metaphors, much more to do with feeling, much more to do with taste, much less to do with visual, interpersonal stuff out there, objectivity, detachment, all that kind of stuff. A creative process more associated with that endpoint, as opposed to the visualizable hard fact endpoint, is much more likely to be back in the creative cycle. It's much more likely to be closely identified with the generative phase, as I think I referred to it in that handout. So rather than focusing on the problem solving and the moment where things come together, the eureka moments, arts practices, I think, tend much more to focus on the generative stages. The kind of things you were doing this morning. The incontinent, as I said, it's kind of this outflowing, the outpouring of creativity. Models of creativity which are drawn from De Bono and from empiricism and those kind of things don't tend to encourage incontinence and excessive and exuberant creativity. That would be inappropriate. You're supposed to define your problem well when you're working in sciences or in business or in those kind of environments. Define your problem well so that you can move towards a solution and get this eureka endpoint, using this empirical hard knowledge. In the arts, you're much more likely to be working in a kind of exuberant, playful, incontinent way, with the eureka moment, if you get one at all, being much less perhaps important. It might just be a kind of a moment at which the production comes together, or in which you decide to stop, or which it becomes available to the people, something like that. It's not really to do with it all coming together at this fantastic moment at the end. Does that kind of make sense? I mean, there might be social reasons why the end of an arts process is interesting. Putting a show on for the first time, or having someone read your book for the first course, that's exciting and interesting. I don't think it's the same thing by any means as to do with the kind of eureka moments that you get within other kinds of creative processes. Okay, let me just take through this narrative a little bit further before we move on to the next bit. So I started making these YouTube videos without really thinking about what that was about. And I was still writing at the same time in different kinds of ways, still keeping files on my computer and forgetting what those were, and still doing the blog. But at that point, the blog wasn't a... So at that point, the blog wasn't my PhD, it was just somewhere where I was keeping my research files, kind of thing, ideas. But at a certain point, I thought, well, this blog is quite interesting, and these YouTube videos are quite interesting, there's something funny going on here. There's lots and lots of stuff. I was up to about 100,000 words on the blog, I was up to about 100 videos. That represents me walking for 500 miles, because they're all walking videos. And there's about 15 hours of video by this point. I think there's something quite interesting going on here. What do I do with this? What is the purpose of all this generative stuff? Is it the right thing to do at this point? To try and kind of distill it? Is it the right thing to do to kind of turn this into a hard object, place it out there as a kind of fact-based object? Should I be looking for kind of eureka moments where all this stuff, all these miles that I've walked and all these words that kind of come together and turn out into a piece of empirical knowledge? Should I be looking for that? And that just felt wrong. It felt wrong because of the very content of the stuff I was writing about. So I'm writing about ways of thinking and being a creative and knowledge generation, which is here, which is about feeling and taste. So why on earth would I want to turn that into something which is out there and which is purely visualizable? You understand what I mean? It just seemed like a strange choice to make. So at that point I rewrote it in my doctorate, and I managed to get the permission to submit a blog. And it's the first blog submission in the world, actually. It's fantastic. First of many, I suspect. It is a fantastic medium for generating knowledge of all kinds. It required quite a bit of arguing, and I think there are lots of very robust arguments to be made about why blogging and this kind of writing lends itself genuinely to knowledge. It's not just a diary. There are reasons why this works as knowledge generation. But that for me, that's a fantastic relief, because that allows me to write in different kinds of registers. So I won't take you through this, but parts of this blog are absolutely written as if